So these days, it can be very difficult to modify an AR-15 in a good way and keep it budget priced. And even right now, November, end of November 2020, there's still a lot of different products out there and an infinite amount of different designs that you can go with your AR-15. So I just want to talk about one simple way that you can modify and enhance your AR-15 and any of your rifles actually without having to worry so much about getting a whole bunch of rails and all that stuff. And what I'm using is, this is my Bear Creek Arsenal. It's a Bear Creek Arsenal lower and upper. It's a 7.62 by 39 millimeter setup. And I'll go more into a different video on why I like the 7.62 in the AR design in a separate video, but I just want to focus on the modifications for right now. So what I did is I went with a more of a commando style inspiration. And I looked at what parts I had, and I just kind of went off of that. I figured what would be a good setup that I would enjoy and use, both for the house and for outdoors in the mountains of Montana, and what would benefit you guys, what would be something that's simple, doesn't take a whole lot of stuff to do. And I went off this. This is, you know, the vibes are, you know, the 90s, early 2000s, back when they had just basic carbines that were modified this way. You saw it a lot in law enforcement. I think you still do see it in law enforcement, depending on where you're at. Saw it a lot in the military, just the basic setup. And this one's 7.62 by 39, so I think it's kind of neat. This thing is just kind of the perfect little woods gun, in my opinion. So this gun, first off, if you have a basic bare bones AR-15 carbine or mid-length or even rifle, this would work pretty well. So what I mean by bare bones is just a basic carbine style. You have the old school style handguards here, no rails, none of that stuff. It's just, you can still find them out there quite a bit, and they're really inexpensive. It's kind of your bare bones AR-15. So first thing you need is a good rear sight if you don't already have a fixed rear sight. If you already have a fixed A1 or A2 style rear sight, then you're good to go. But if you don't have one, make sure to get a good solid rear sight. And I'm talking like a good solid fixed rear sight. Don't get anything folding or anything like that, unless, of course, you're really planning on throwing optics or whatnot on there. But this is kind of more of an iron sight build right here. So a good quality rear sight is a must. The front sight on this one, this works really good for the old A-frame style front sight post assemblies. That is by far one of the strongest assemblies you're going to have for an AR-15. It's the old school, been around for years and years. You can see it right there. It's the standard old school front sight post. What I have on that front sight post is a rail mount from Midwest Industries. So Midwest Industries still sells these. They clamp right on, put a little blue thread locker in there, and you're good to go. Even when it gets warm, it's not going to move anywhere. And it's a very solid mount, and it works really well for the handguards. And you can move it up and down just a little bit. There's a little bit of adjustment that you can do as far as where on that front sight post you can set it at. So what I have is an old Surefire, the old M951s. Those folks that are fellow Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom, global war on terrorism types, you know this light all too well. Very common in the military. This is an old school military one. I've had this thing for years and years. I didn't even upgrade with the new LED upgrade. You can have an upgrade on these. I haven't gotten around to it yet. I heard it sucks the batteries dry really fast on these ones, but I haven't really. I still have the old school bulb in here just because I have it, and I have spares, so I just don't worry about it. Kind of gives it that old school feel. I have a pressure plate to it as well, and all I did was I mounted it on the right side. You can mount it on the left side if you want, depending on if you're left or right-handed. And if you want the push button, you can mount it on this side as well. But I like to mount things on the right side if I can. A little bit less of negligent discharge for the light, and it just works out better. The pressure switch I decided to keep, and I threw it on here. You certainly don't need it because there's your light switch right here. And you see it's not really that bright. It's the old school light. But anyway, You can press this and it works just fine, but I said, you know what, I'm going to keep this, and I had some Ranger bands. So I have two-sided, the little two-sided tape or whatnot, the sticky for the Velcro that I put on here, and I got a couple of the Ranger bands across it. Then I have a simple 2-point sling, and I have Ranger band on the back to keep that sling in control. Muzzle brake, it's just a standard 7.62 muzzle brake from Gun Tech USA. Had that on here for a little bit. So this gives a basic setup, and you could use whatever light you want. There's a lot of different lights out there. This is just kind of a visual representation of what I did, and it just didn't cost, it won't cost much. I know these lights are still kind of expensive, but you could find inexpensive lights and do this. The mount is really inexpensive. A pack of Ranger bands is near nothing. You could find good rear fixed sights for like 20, 30 bucks, if that. And simple 2-point slings are really inexpensive as well. Now you have a very solid and very balanced rifle. It'll work. It has good iron sights. It'll work for mid-range, close range. You can even shoot it a little bit long range. This one is 7.62 by 39, so this one's a little bit more of a short range, which is perfect for the forests and mountains where I live in right now. I'd be hard-pressed to find areas where I live that I would be engaging unless I'm shooting across ravines. I would be hard-pressed to find something at around 300 yards. It'll be more something like 100 yards on in. More like 50 yards on in. So this is perfect for that. And I'll go over that in a separate video, why it's 7.62 by 39. So I just wanted to show that. The key to remember is when you're doing stuff like this is just make sure you have, if you want to do a pressure switch, just make sure it's mounted in a good way. Make sure the light makes sense to where it's ergonomically placed. Just to show right here, as I hold the rifle right here, all I have to do is move this over and then I engage the light. That's why I did it. I could do the same with the button as well. So if I lose my pressure switch, I can engage my constant on or stick with momentary on, and I don't have to really worry about changing my grip. That's why I have this mounted the way it is. It works. And that's why you see a lot of old carbines with lights mounted like this, because it just works. So as far as just the, this light adds a little bit of weight to the forend, but it's not too bad. You'll have to play around with it depending on what type of light you have. This works great if you have smaller lights. If you got newer, smaller, high-speed, 800,000 lumen lights that are much more bright than these things, these old dinosaurs, you can use that as well. There's a lot of options out there, but the key is to just keep it simple, and it follows what I said before. You keep the AR-15 simple. Iron sights with a light. That's all you need. You can do the optics if you have issues with some sort of, if you have vision issues or something like that you need optics for, then you can kind of go with that. So in any case, as far as I didn't do anything as far as internally, I kept everything the same. I just wanted to keep it simple. The handguard, this is a slim handguard right here. It'll work on the fatter handguard. You just won't have as much. If you use a light like this, you'll have to mess with the clearance, especially if you're using the Midwest Industries mount. You'll just have to play with it a little bit. But the gun itself handles good. I have no issues with it. It'll work great for home defense. It'll work great for any type of outdoors type stuff, which is a little bit more why I have it outfitted this way. I live out in the mountains. There's a lot of predatory animals out here, and I like to be outdoors. So if I'm in the outdoors, I look at different rifles, and I figure, what could I use that's a great caliber for the predatory animals that I have in my area? 7.62 by 39 is actually a decent caliber. It's a little bit, if I come across a grizzly bear, I don't know. The 7.62 by 39 is about like a 30-30. So a little bit issues there, but for everything else, I got good capacity, ease of handling. If I'm outside in a low light or no light environment overnight, the flashlight will help with that. It's very easy to use. Very ergonomic, all that good stuff. But anyway, just wanted to show that to you, just to give you some ideas. You don't have to go fancy with all the rails. You can go the old school way and rock and roll all the same. So feel free to put your thoughts and whatnot on inexpensive ways to set up like a commando style rifle, if you will, and let me know what you think. Feel free to put the comments in, good or bad. Put in your thoughts. Make sure you put in your setups if you have your own ideas, so that way people can read what you got and maybe they can take your ideas and put it on their builds. All right, thanks a lot for watching as always, and stay safe and stay sane.